Enemy design is important, so I'm gonna give myself 2 hours to make the perfect enemy in my video game. First thing to do when making a good video game enemy is come up with a plan. People have told me that the bad thing about my enemy design is that all enemies just chase the player, which leads to the enemies being clumped up on the screen. The plan for this enemy is when you get near the enemy, he will move away and place a bit of dynamite on the ground so that you can't just keep on chasing the enemy. When you are a fair distance away, he will shoot bullets at you, and when you are a very far distance away, he will move towards you slowly. The second thing I like to do is the pixel art for the enemy, and since this is a snow area, it would make sense that the enemy is something snow related as well. So I went with the idea of making a snowman, but strapped a bunch of dynamite to him, just to spice it up a little bit. The art process for me involved a lot of trial and error and just playing around until it looks good. Really, a lot of my art is very simple anyway, but I think they are really brought to life by their animation, which is what I spent a lot of time on. That being said, this guy didn't really need as much of an intricate animation as some of the other enemies in the game, like this snow guy or Lord Kakarot. I just needed this simple run animation and this one where he shoots a bullet. They're simple, but they should look good when I add lots of effects and particle systems to the enemy. Now onto the main and hardest part of making the enemy for me, and that's the actual design. The first thing to set up is making the enemy chase the player, which uses this simple line of code, though now it's time to make the actual enemy design interesting. First thing to do was make the enemy move away when you got too close and stand still when you're at a medium distance. To detect how far away the player is, I use this line of code, which basically casts a virtual circle over the snowman, and if the player enters that region, this bool variable will return true, so I can change the state of the enemy depending on how near the player is. The next attack is this dynamite that gets placed on the ground when the player gets too near. Basically, I was told the enemy design in my game makes it so that all the enemies chase the player and the player is encouraged to chase the enemy back. This makes gameplay boring at times, so this attack does the opposite. If you try to chase the snowman, you'll get blown up by the dynamite. The snowman also retreats, so he feels a little bit more smart than the slime, for example, who just chases the player blindly. A problem I had designing this enemy is that when he retreats, he can go off the border of the map, which obviously doesn't look right. I could have spent hours trying to code some sort of pathfinding algorithm into the game, but my solution is a lot easier. I just made a particle system under the snowman, which looks a bit like a platform, and set the order and layer to be underneath the ground, so that when the snowman moves off the map, it looks like it was intended. A bit of a lazy fix, but a fix nonetheless. Here is the finished enemy in my game, Eye of the Portal. If you want to check out the full game, go and watch it on Steam and leave a sub on the channel.